Hi, this is Chris Eymann,
Tracy Royce,
Luke Rotvold,
and this is the Red Room. Tracy, Luke, and I jump on every week to talk about real estate, acquisitions,
a lot of fix and flip,
and design,
dispositions,
Airbnbs,
financial independence, retire early.
We always have a new guest every single week.
We're going to have a lot of fun, all right?
So if you're interested in any or all of those, make sure to join us on the Red Room podcast.
And subscribe to the Red Room.
Share it with your friends, or join us on the Phoenix RIA Facebook page.
So official.
There we go. The Red Room is officially on again. So thanks, guys, for joining. I don't know, we're in the 126, 127 Red Room. The market is kind of just, bouncing around like it has for, I don't know, ever since February. It's just kind of been, status quo. Our inventory hasn't really moved. It's right in that 25,000 range. The good news is with Iran negotiations going on, we've probably lost a full quarter point off the 10-year, which translates to basically a 25% off your interest rates. So that's always helpful. Got some background noise.
Sounds like you guys got a construction site going on over there.
I think he's in a construction site for sure. I mean, but what better way to do how to build your next ground up construction, but on his, his construction site.
Right.
I was reading stats, so I'm back. Josh here? Oh, there's Josh. So, so thanks, Josh, for muting that. We'll ask you questions if it's going to be loud. Then if you can mute that in the future, that is awesome. So I've been a fix and flipper for years, just like Tracy has. I tend to stick probably 90% wholesale, 10% fix and flip, and I generally fix and flip probably the worst ones, the ones that I can't sell, which obviously is never good because then I become a terrible fix and flipper because I take what everybody else doesn't like, and so generally I break even or lose money and make a little bit, right? I don't cherry pick any of them, but I think Josh and I were sitting in the islands a year and a half ago. I think it was a year and a half ago, and we said, you know what? Our retirement, I was getting clobbered on some fix and flips of spring and summer of 2025. Nothing new. I think everybody was. And we were sitting in the islands and we're like, you know what? We should just do some ground up construction. We currently have 3 ground up constructions going. And I think Josh has 5 ground up constructions going. He's got a few other additional ones without me. But if you just pencil the numbers, the profit is way bigger. Way bigger. I want to say if you're making 0, it's infinitely bigger, but it's definitely something that has, I think, going to change my trajectory for the last, call it 10 to 15 years I do real estate. So I just kind of thought we'd jump on here and go over kind of the pitfalls. And I think it really is that first 6 to 9 months of getting started. And we've kind of, Josh and I have, gone through our, opening pitfalls on these first 3. I think we're getting it more dialed in, but it's definitely like the first 6 months, I think, is the hardest. Once you get to the construction phase, it's just a couple more trades than doing a heavy fix and flip. So thanks for jumping on, Josh. Give us some insight. Where do you think the pitfalls are? Where do you think you start? I mean, obviously you got to find the lot first.
Right. And so you had asked, Chris had actually texted me and asked me the 5 pitfalls. So I put together a quick 5, which I think are the biggest hurdles to get over with the new build. Number 1 would be your due diligence period. So figure out, once you find that lot that you want, find out every bit of information you can find out about it. And down to, does it have a sewer? Does it have a septic? That's something that can cause lots of time in the front end if you have to go through Maricopa County. And it's just about knowing what your, hold on just a second, this drill is going to be real loud.
It's very
That's great.
apropos for a ground up construction conversation.
I'm actually in a ground up construction right now that I'm building up in Cornville, and we have our final inspection tomorrow. So it's kind of all hands on deck. There's lots of little stuff going on at the same time. So, but yeah, so the number one thing is your due diligence. Find out what size is your building envelope. Did the golf course take all of the NAOS from the golf course and add it to your particular lot and shrink your 50,000 square foot lot down to a 10,000 square foot building envelope? That has happened to me in the past. So I'd say number one is just due diligence. Figure out find all the surprises in the beginning, as opposed to, finding them later on down the road, and which isn't always in this business. You're not able to find everything up front, but I'd suggest putting as much time in as you possibly can in your due diligence period to figure out what is going to hamstring you later.
And Josh, is that the point where you would bring in inspectors and a team of people to help you mitigate that risk with your lot due diligence?
So yes, you could definitely bring in somebody. I would recommend going with a bigger architect. Me and Chris have done this for years, and we've done where we kind of piecemealed everything together. It just goes back to the age-old saying, you get what you pay for. So, rather than piecing it all together and having a drafter do this and having a civil engineer do that, if you go to one firm, then, have those guys, they can do your due diligence for you, but it's a matter of, if you're in an HOA, go talk to the HOA. Whatever city jurisdiction you're in, go down, and you can pull historic records on every single property in Arizona, obviously, and I'm sure most other states are the same. There is a historic records department for every building jurisdiction. So go down, pull all those historic records, and just find out all of the information that there is available. And also, too, you can definitely hire somebody to do it. But if it's, like for me, this is my job, this is what I do, I trust myself more than I trust anybody else. So I like to go down and do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a couple pitfalls that we've just looked at recently, like you can buy a lot, and it looks like, we looked at a lot and we canceled a lot, and the agent said, oh, it's R114, and this is a 1.2 acre lot. So, this could be split, but there wasn't enough street frontage to make a lot split even possible. So we got it under contract, thought, maybe we can make 3 lots out of this one lot. Well, without the exact lot frontage, you couldn't do that. So, and I was to the other point, like we bought a golf course community, and basically the golf course in Scottsdale, they require NAOS. The golf course had taken a piece of NAOS from each lot, which shrunk the building envelope. We were looking at a lot in that same subdivision. It was 2.5 acres, and it had so it's whatever, over 100,000 square feet, and its building envelope was like 11,000 square feet.
Which, yes, on a hillside lot, that is very difficult. You need some driveway.
Yeah. And to that point, like if you're going to spend, if you got to spend a driveway going up the hill, and that takes away some of your building envelope, it even shrinks your building size even further. So what are the other 4 pitfalls you came across?
So number 2 is budget. We do this for a living, so there has to be some profit left over. And budget kind of goes both ways. You can't be too lean on your budget. So, if you're trying to sell, a house in the $4 to $5 million range, you can't put together, a $700,000 budget. You have to build a house that is going to sell for what you want it to sell for. So you can't go too cheap. And then also too, you don't want to go, too heavy and kind of price yourself into just one particular buyer. So, so the next thing with it, which is with any project, whether it's a fix and flip or a new construction or an Airbnb or anything, your budget has to be really planned out and then stuck to. And when you go over budget, you have to, I always have to give myself, 3 different reasons. Why am I going over budget with this item? What can it do for me? Is it just something that I want? Because this isn't my house. This is my occupation.
Mm-hmm.
You run across that, Tracy, a lot, or are you pretty good at getting the budget completely dialed in? Obviously, everything happens. As you open the wrong wall up and something else comes along.
Little oopsie there. Well, that was part of my question to Josh is on a fix and flip, normally we're building in an additional 10% on our budget buffers. How does that work in the new build? If you're doing something ground up and say, for instance, you have a $1 million budget, it's very different than if we have a $100,000 budget versus $1 million, right? So how do you guys play?
I still figure a 10% contingency. So same thing. So on $1 million budget, I got an extra 100 grand for the things that I didn't think about. Is lumber going to go through the roof? Or is gas prices going to go crazy? And now everything that I got to ship in has gone up by 10%. So I usually, with any construction project, I usually factor in a 10% contingency plan. But keep that as a contingency plan. Don't include it as part of your budget. Does that make sense? It's there for if you need it, not, oh, well, I can just use it. Don't spend it on fixtures.
Come on, guys. That's the fun part. Why not?
That's the icing on the cake.
Right.
Yeah. Well, then that brings you to number 3. Number 3 is, I would say, is not knowing your plans. So for me, I've been reading plans since I was a kid. I'm really good at reading 2-dimensional plans and building the house inside my mind. But if you're building something new, know your plans, because there's nothing worse than remodeling a new house. So getting the house done, getting everything built and going, oh, I hate that. So if you're not, if you haven't spent the years and years looking at plans like I have, I would suggest spending the money on getting a 3D model done of your plans. So you can kind of go through and figure out, because you can get a 3D model done for a couple $1,000s. Then you can walk through your plans and you can find all the things that you want to change before you build it. And then, again, also if you're not super happy with reading plans, and when you meet your framer there and you snap everything out, it's so much easier to move chalk lines on a concrete floor than it is to move walls. And so I would just say, figure out as much as you possibly can with your plans, get to know them very intimately, so that when you're building the house, you don't even necessarily, I always say building a new house is easier than remodeling. I had a partner 7 or 8 years ago, and the first time we built a new house, he was scared. He was like, how are we going to build a new house? And I was like, from any beach with Wi-Fi. I was like, if you have a problem on a new house, the problem is you. Literally everything is on the plans. As long as everything is on the plans and your plans are very detailed and everything is correct the way you want it, at that point, it's just running a schedule. So
I will say it does seem like a big leap if you haven't done any ground up construction to go from a heavy remodel to a new build, because there are the additional trades, of course, but then picking out the lot and all the due diligence that's entailed with that. How would you recommend if someone has done remodeling, say that they've done room additions or something like that, but nothing to the effect that you're talking about? What would help them bridge that gap?
I would suggest just finding a builder, for instance, what Chris and I do is we partner with with different investors, because unfortunately I don't just have a pocket full of millions of dollars and can buy all these lots and build all these houses. And if I did, I would probably still do this because I love it, but I'm not quite there yet. So, I would suggest, if you do want to partner with somebody that does know how to build a house, because it's, like I said, it's not that much harder, or you don't necessarily need a partner. You could just hire a builder that's what they do, is build new houses. And I know it does seem like a scary leap, but it's really not that much more work. There's definitely, like Chris said, there's a lot more work on the front end, that goes into design, permitting. You're going to spend sometimes up to a year just on the front end. I tell Chris all the time, I was like, it takes longer to get a permit than it does for me to actually build the house. The one that we are building right now, we bought it in the one that we're about halfway done with it. We bought it December 5th of 2024. We got our permit January 12th of this year. and we should be drywalling it in a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So takes a lot longer to get it designed, get it permitted than it does to actually build it.
So what's number 4? If number 3 was knowing your plans, what's next?
So number 4, I have know your lead times. So that's one of the things that can really, you don't want to have a house sitting either. Time is money. So, so your biggest lead times on stuff, like say maybe you really want some crazy Italian flooring. So order that in advance. Your cabinets are typically going to be your longer lead times. Your windows are going to be your longer lead times. So once you build your budget, then kind of go through and put a date to when you anticipate needing these items and how long is it going to take you to get those items. So, knowing your lead times, because the worst thing to do is have a house that's ready for cabinets and you're sitting for a month waiting on cabinets.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do we spend on our cabinets? 10 weeks? Well, that was our lead time on the cabinets?
Yeah, 10 weeks is our lead time on our cabinets. And so we should have those right around the middle of July. And that's right about the time we should be needing them. So it's keeping your schedule aligned so that you're not waiting on something. But and that kind of also ties back into knowing your plans. Once you get, you spend a lot of time reading through your plans, you're going to take a lot of notes. You're going to know everything already. You're going to know, what you want, where, and then just decide how long it's going to take to get that. Mm-hmm. If you're ordering something that's going to, I have a lot of, I do remodels and new builds, like Chris was saying, for retail clients as well. And people want what they want. So sometimes, they want a tile from Turkey that is going to take 16 weeks to get. Well, we should order that before we even start.
Mm-hmm. So pretty similar to remodeling, probably just with more luxurious finishes if you guys are doing this yourself on a $5 million house versus a $500,000 house where the homeowner wants a more simple remodel.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, so that brings me to number 5, which this one isn't very glamorous, but it's something that can cause you a lot of trouble, but could also make things a lot easier if you plan for it. And that is utilities. So on a new house, especially on an empty lot, it doesn't always have a sewer tap. It doesn't always have gas meter ran to it. It doesn't always have electrical ran to it. So once you do start, day one, I always start on my utilities. One, it's awful to listen to a generator. So you don't want to listen to a generator for any longer period of time than you absolutely have to. And then a lot of those things can take quite a long time. Like, for instance, the project that Chris and I are working on, I started on getting my power the day we started on January 12th, and I just got my meter set last night at 4:30 in the afternoon at the end of APS's day. They set meter and we have power, and I don't have to listen to a generator anymore. Mm-hmm. But I hate listening to a generator. I've already got Southwest Gas scheduled to come run the gas line, and then there's also little tricks with that too. So like with Southwest Gas, if you use one of their approved list vendors, which the sub that we use is an approved list vendor, they can literally dig the hole right to the meter, put the sleeve in and cover it up. And Southwest Gas will just come run the gas through the sleeve because they know that contractor has gone through their classes and is schooled to do it appropriately, rather than having a trench open for a week that somebody can fall in, have Southwest Gas come out and inspect it and then run your gas. Stuff like that isn't like necessarily, the gas isn't usually something that you need to rush on, but it can definitely, if you leave it till the last minute, then say you get your house done, you have it closed, you have a contract, you want to close on it. Well, you can't close because you're waiting on a meter from Southwest Gas. So you're taking time off waiting on a meter because you didn't think about it until 6 months into your build, as opposed to starting it in the beginning of your build. Mm-hmm. And not that I've ever done that and held up a close because I didn't have a gas meter before, but I've heard it's happened. No, I definitely have done that.
So what are some other, those are some great pitfalls, but what do you think some of the other, like Tracy asked, how to jump from, a big remodel, like if you're tearing out walls and, you got to go get a city permit anyway. A city permit, like I'm doing a burnt house right now and I'm 4 to 5 months, and I'm hoping to have a permit this week, but I'm 4 to 5 months just on, a burn house, and I'm building the exact same house that was there before. But, I'm waiting on the city to, it's 2 to 3 weeks for a revision. Then you send it back to the architect. It's 2 to 3 weeks for the architect to get back. Then, you get those back and you send it back in. Another 2 to 3 weeks waiting for that. And then you had to start with an as-built. So they have to basically redraw the house that was there. Then you got to wait for the architect to do all that. Then actually I got there and the city's like, oh, we want to actually send out an engineer to look to make sure that the blocks are okay to build a new house on again. So, I mean, it's definitely a time process if you're going to get a permit for a remodel. I just think it's way worth it if you're going to do that extensive a remodel to just do new builds as well. Unfortunately, this was a house I took back as a lender, so I don't really have a choice but to remodel it. How much?
Yeah, and it is very similar. I've been in the luxury space for quite a long time. So I've had remodels that were $2 million that have taken 18, 19 months to complete. So and I've told those clients, like the last one in particular that I did, it took 20 months to complete. It was $2 million is what we spent. And it was a 7,000 square foot house.
Wow.
Chris and I are breaking ground right now on a 7,000 square foot house that I plan on having done in under 12 months. So it would be less work, essentially. If you factor in, obviously, all the front end permitting time, it'll be about the same amount of time. But one thing too with, I have another client that actually just bought a property over on the base of Camelback Mountain, and the house is move-in ready. So what I told her, I was like, okay, we got the house while we start designing it. Anticipate it taking a year. Maybe we can get it done in 8 months, but it doesn't matter. Put a renter in that house. And then you don't just have an asset sitting there bleeding. She's not going to get $5,000 a month out of this place because it looks like a time capsule, but she might get $2,500 or $3,000 a month out of this house where it's just sitting there. You don't have to worry about vagrants moving into it. It's, so it's, like I said, I know some people say that building a new house is scary, but I don't see it as scarier than a large scale remodel. I honestly, I see it as easier than a large scale remodel, because a large scale remodel, you got to go in, tear out walls, and you have an idea of how the house was built, but you don't really know until you open it up. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, this wall is load bearing. I can't put a footing here because there's underground AC ducts. There's all kinds of variables that you don't have with a new build.
Histories, mysteries, right? So if people are considering going from remodeling or even starting to do new builds, how do the margins compare? Because I've heard you guys say that several times. So if you're open to sharing that, for instance, on a typical flip, we're looking to make about 10% of the full retail value. I can talk. You guys know what I'm saying. How does that compare in the ground up space?
So in the luxury space that Chris and I are moving in, I would say we're shooting for double that, at least double that on our profit. So we'll see what the market tells us, but if you look at a neighborhood where you can buy a lot, $1 million, and houses are selling for $1,000 a square foot. You build a 5,000 square foot house, that's a $5 million house. So if you're into your lot, now you can't buy lots for $1 million anymore. You're buying them for 1.5. But I mean, even if you spend $2 million building your house, you're still into it 3.5 and making 1.5. Not quite, because you still got closing costs, but still making 1. That's your 20%.
And our numbers, obviously, I sourced distress lots, which obviously helps. We bought one of our lots at 2.4, and one of our neighbors paid 3.3.
Wow. So
helping getting the lot at the right price. And another one of the lots that he talked about that people are paying 1.5 for, 1.6 for, we paid 1.1 for. So sourcing the lots as a distress as a distressed lot first, then going, oh yeah, this fits the model, then adding the ability to build on it, it creates a little bit better profit margin as well. Like I said, the guy that's got a 3.3 lot, he's got a $800,000, premium that he paid that we didn't pay. So.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine too, because Chris, you've shared this before, that I think you're taking a similar floor plan and reapplying it to different lots. Whereas in the remodel world, sure, you could take a palette and replicate that if you're not more boutique. But I think in the space that you guys are in, there might be a little bit more one-off, but I would also imagine it's a lot easier to duplicate what you guys are doing versus as a remodeler, every project is essentially brand new to some capacity.
Yeah, and some of the bigger builders that we're dealing with in some of the neighborhoods like Cactus Corridor, there's a couple builders that you're like, yep, that's the same model, that's the same model, that's the same model. And we're doing it too. We kind of have a 5,200 square foot version, like a 5,400 square foot version. Now we have a 6,000 square foot version, and it has a guest house, so it makes it like a 7,000 square foot version. So, but it's the same house. And the great thing about it is I think we're on number 6, 7, and 8. So, we've made little tweaks like, move this here, move this here. Now the pantry isn't just a pantry, it's a butler's pantry. So it's got, a sink in the pantry, a double oven in the pantry, and all the other stuff that goes along with the butler's pantry that people are really starting to enjoy. So.
Mm-hmm. On that note, Josh, I'd love to ask.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, I was going to say, I was like, the house that we're building now, the version of we're building now, the very first version of this that Chris and I ever built was in 2018. So it's been, 8 years, and we just kind of adapted it to today's trend. And what's the cool thing is we get to fix the things that we didn't necessarily like the first time. Mm-hmm. And we're not by any means the first people to do this. Look at, there's tons of multi-billion-dollar tract home companies out there that build the same house all over the country.
Mm-hmm. On that note, I'd love to ask you, Josh, what are a couple other trends that you're seeing in the luxury new build space that are buyers are demanding or liking or moving towards? Things like maybe a spa-like bathroom has been on trend for a while. What else are you seeing?
I'm seeing the spa-like bathroom. I'm seeing a lot of like hidden doors, to hidden rooms, the kind of scullery that looks just like another freezer. And then, sorry, it's a little windy, but, and then also too, it really is kind of as cool as you could make it. Like I had a retail client that we put a TV behind a motorized panel in the hood in their kitchen. So they could just go into the island, push a button underneath the overhang, and this cabinet door raised up to the ceiling with the TV underneath it. Just so, they could watch. The guy was into sports. He wanted to watch Sports Center in the morning while he was cooking his eggs. And so it was, it's kind of just the coolest stuff you can think of, the pool bar that shoots water out of it into the pool. And it's, just how trick can you make it, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to make it a ton of fun.
A couple of things that we've added, like our butler's pantry has a door that looks like the cabinet, so you don't even know the pantry's there. And then we have a safe room in the master. Once again, you wouldn't know that the safe room's even there until you push on it, and then it pops out and slides open. So just some kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, and one of the things too, so that, like I said, we've been building this house since 2018. One of the things that we're doing, and what actually kind of inspired it, was a client who bought one of our houses from us, and having the formal dining room, they added cabinetry and built it into a lounge, because people use a formal dining room obviously a lot less now. So now the house, we're building a very similar house, and we're building a lounge instead of a formal dining room. We created a kitchen nook that you can fit a table that would seat 15 or 16 people. Why do you need the other dining room that you're going to use twice a year, as opposed to turning it into a lounge that you could use every day? Come home, sit down, put your feet up, instead of having preset Martha Stewart table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with the lead time with the building, it sounds like there's a lot of hurry up and wait and due diligence before you actually get into the actual building process part of it. Would you say that there's something safer about building versus remodeling, or what's your guys' take on that?
I think it's all a risk. We are banking on, the market staying the same or not moving too much, or hopefully we've hit the lottery and it will go gangbusters and our $5 million houses will be worth 10 by the time we're done with them. But I don't really think there is any more risk, except for maybe the fact that, I don't know what your typical fix and flip is if you are, if you do like a 120-day turn or if it's a 6-month turn. But, I tell people with a figure a 2-year turn on your money,
Yeah.
cash to cash.
Usually the flips are 4 or 5 months. So there's, that much exposure. Chris, what were you going to say?
No, I definitely. So yeah, it's a longer period of time, but I still think, you're baking in equity, right? So if I took, especially since we bought a lot at a discount, I look at like the first one we did, we bought the lot 1-1. I think we're going to be in the build like 1-3. I don't think there's any chance it sells under 4. I really think the market is for the house is 4.5 to 4.7, but we're only sitting there at, call it 2.5 all in,
Mm-hmm.
The worst case scenario, like the luxury market would have to cut almost in half to break even, and to lose money, it would have to just like, the good thing about like what we've created is, what we do is we go, and I think what'll be great about continuing forward is we'll have this first one and you'll say, hey, and what was great on the first one is me and a partner, and we paid all cash for the lot. So there is no carrying cost for that year that it took to get a permit. And then we paid cash for the build. So there's no carrying cost there. So obviously we're going to make more than normal. But you could also say, okay, well, if we had borrowed the money to build the house, we would deduct this. Mm-hmm. And then we went into the next one and I had some more cash available, but we liked it. And we ended up going to that 2-4 lot. I just sold 4 shares. So, hey, everybody throw in $600,000. And now once again, the lot's paid for. We had to work basically a year on plans and permits and all that again, even though we were, using the same plan, we're tweaking it. We needed the 7,000 square foot for this one because it was basically on the Phoenician golf course. But once again, we just sold 4 shares cash. So there's no interest carry during that 1 year. And then I've made a relationship with a local bank, and I ended up getting 0.5 point and 6.5% for the construction money.
Oh, wow.
So, not paying hard money is another, piece to the puzzle. And we should be through that at, 4.4 million ish, but it should be listing at, high 7s.
Around that 7, right?
Yeah. So, once again, you're kind of building that equity. So the chances of you actually without the interest carry or expensive interest carry and the chance of you actually losing money or not doing at least a decent profit is, shrinks it a little bit. So, right.
Well, the luxury market has not only sustained itself, but seemed to do particularly well too. Brian Norris spoke eloquently about that however many weeks ago he was on too. So I just wanted to add that in there for anyone that's listening and thinking, should I get into new buildings? Should I continue to do remodeling? So thank you for those insights.
Yeah. Cool, Josh. Well, thanks for jumping on with us. You can go finish up for your final inspection and
yeah, I gotta go get this nice finished up. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Josh.
We'll see you next Hey, thanks for watching that episode. And this is the start of your real estate journey. There's over 100 episodes and a bunch of playlists. And please hit subscribe before you move on to the next video.